Good afternoon, and welcome to our third and final day of Partner Unite. I hope you've been enjoying the conference so far. I don't know where time has gone, but we're already at day 3. Thanks for tuning in. It's my pleasure to introduce you all to Anthony Lamot, CEO of DESelect, and Bruna Schwerz, EDU Marketing Cloud Specialist at Salesforce.org. And today they'll be presenting the topic of building segmentation services around Marketing Cloud. But before we dive in, I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with these. Please base your purchasing decisions on technology that is currently available today. So really at this point, I'll hand over to Anthony and Bruna to introduce themselves formally. I'll be monitoring the chat box, so if you do have questions, please do not hesitate to type away, and I have no doubt Anthony and Bruna will be happy to answer them for you. So with that said, I will hand over to Anthony and Bruna.
So hi everyone, thanks Sam for the great introduction. So my name's Anthony, I'm the CEO and co-founder of DESelect. Some of you may know me from the demo jam earlier this week, which was very exciting and a lot of fun to do. And fun fact, I used to be on the consulting side in a past life. These days I've switched to ISV, being an independent software vendor and making tools that our customers love.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure for me to be here with DESelect today. I am a marketing cloud specialist inside Salesforce. And previous to being in .org space, I was in .com space, so dealing with commercial environment companies. And coming to the higher education sector last year was great, amazing. And honored to be here because DESelect is a tool that we all love inside Marketing Cloud. So thank you for inviting me over.
It's a pleasure for having you, absolutely. And today will be a rapid fire session. We have a lot of ground to cover with some call to action, so stay on your toes. And it starts now. I wanted to give you a little bit of extra value from the get-go. Aside segmentation, one of the things we've built is a free Chrome extension. We call it SFC Quick Search, and it's just super nice to find your stuff very quickly in Marketing Cloud. You can get it from the Chrome store, and to make it very easy for the listeners today, I'll just drop the link in the chat and give it a try. So if all's well, that should be now in the chat. All right, so now I presume that many of you on the call here today have done Salesforce Marketing Cloud implementations, and as such, you are familiar with some of the main challenges you may encounter. Some of the challenges I used to see when I was on the SI side are things like there's a lack of SQL knowledge, not just amongst clients, mind you, but you also have many people in your team who are not necessarily technically inclined. What if that was not a limitation? What if even a junior consultant could basically completely solo a Marketing Cloud implementation? Secondly, implementation time. Whatever you can do to get customers live more quickly, to launch your MVP, your POC, whatever it may be, more quickly is something that will catch the attention of your customers. That is also something we definitely see a need for and we can support. And then 2 other things that are bringing us more towards the operational side, more toward the customer side, are things like scoring and engagement, a very interesting topic, and it's a very dynamic topic. And I think here, an SI can deliver a lot of value by creating things like lead scoring, engagement scoring, and whatnot. Lastly, time spent on data. Any time that you would spend on data or your client is probably very necessary these days. As I say, data is the new oil or the new gold. But if you could reduce that, wouldn't that be great? And those are exactly the kind of challenges we help with. Yes, Bruna.
Anthony, sorry to interrupt you. I see implementation challenge, but I'm sure that you can see a lot of business challenge as well, talking about gold and the data, gold, etc. I understand that you see a lot of business challenge as well, right?
Yes, that is actually a very good question. So, I mean, on the customer side, the real value we try to bring is on several levels. I would say from a cost-saving point of view, we see that teams typically spend, Marketing Cloud teams, mind you, typically spend 40% of their time on data. From writing SQL queries to just...
40%.
Yes, yeah, so 2 days out of 5. It's an average we keep getting back to when we query, pun intended, our customers on that. And we see that with the right information, you can halve that. Thank you.
That's impressive, yeah.
There's plenty more. There's things like avoiding subscriber attrition by having more targeted campaigns, making sure you don't lose those those hard-earned subscribers, which are very harder and harder to get, frankly. And aside that, just generating more marketing generate revenue is, of course, one that we support as well.
Good.
All
Good
right.
to know.
Thank you. So what's our solution to the problem? Well, in a nutshell, high level, we have built an application that completely sits inside of Marketing Cloud, which I'll show you in a moment. And there were a few key differentiators for us, such as it's really fully integrated in SFMC, meaning whatever data you or your customer put into the system, it's immediately accessible by DESelect. Secondly, it had to be very intuitive. We really wanted to make a tool that both technical marketers and non-technical marketers can really enjoy and understand with minimal training. And lastly, the plug and play setup itself. Whereas there are some services needed, obviously, and that's the whole topic of today's presentation. What your customers will still really like to hear is that it's plug and play, and the setup is very easy. I'll be quick over some of the next slides, but I love this slide because if you understand this, you understand 50% of what marketing automation is about. And many of us amongst SIs come from a background of managing CRMs. CRMs have relational data models. You have things like contact information, purchases, behavioral data, and often the data models are just copied into Marketing Cloud as such, and that's fine. But to actually send a personalized communication that goes beyond dear first name, we need to combine data sources together. And that is something that is typically a challenge, not just on a day-to-day basis for your clients, but even during your implementation. It will in fact be one of the major deliverables expected from you as a consultant. And then once it's up and running, what happens typically? Well, if a client is typically working with SQL, which is the sort of coding out-of-the-box solution to do very advanced segmentation, what happens is you get something we call targeting ping-pong. For instance, a marketer may want to do a campaign. So what will often happen in an organization is that the marketer will prepare a briefing, sit together with a technical person. Now, I don't know about you guys, but technical people are in high demand after all, and they're quite busy. So there's often waiting times that creep into the process. Now, usually a single briefing is never enough. When two people work together, you need more than one alignment point. And so there may be some misunderstandings or requirements simply change as the campaign live date approaches. I wonder if that sounds familiar to some of you. So emergency meetings, adjusting queries last minute. I've seen it all while I was a consultant myself or working on the client side. And because of that, you often miss deadlines, or even if you meet them, maybe you've lost some years of your life due to stress. So when we switch to the approach with DESelect, the whole game changes. Instead of relying on a technical person, potentially at the start of the project, there will be some alignment between the business and the technical team or person, and you will be able to define something we call a selection template, predefined segments that can easily be copied by marketers afterwards, and they can self-manage. And because of that, you take away that friction, you reduce total time spent on data, but also you can launch campaigns faster in themselves. All of that is also summarized on this slide. So this is where the 40% comes back, Bruna. It's something that we found and that we've written about in various ebooks and resources we've made available. And we've also seen at the same time that DESelect typically saves 50% of the time you spend on data. So imagine that you suddenly have one day extra free in your week. What I wouldn't do for that. And of course, in addition to that, better tools for extracting campaign and behavioral data also eases reporting. So it's not just about audience creation anymore. In Marketing Cloud, many will also use SQL to analyze reports. I actually used to be working for a very large automotive in Europe. I was a lead marketing automation there, and you'd be surprised, but it consumed a lot of my personal time there to build reports based on data I would get through queries. All right, so I'll back up these claims though. We'll share some success stories that we have. For instance, Practicing Law Institute, a nonprofit. They're based in New York, and they're the largest education platform for lawyers in the States. Now, the challenge that PLI had was that as they approached the go live of their Salesforce Marketing Cloud implementation, they realized they had a shortage of SQL knowledge in-house. Now, they had it already planned for many trainings there, but they saw a danger in having their marketing team being dependent on their internal analytics team, which would consume a lot of their time. So in a very short time, we swung that around. We started DESelect, and as I already mentioned, it's plug and play, so you can get started quickly. And instead, we gave them some training in DESelect, and it completely removed the need for SQL. Now their marketers work independently. I would say there's some of our strongest advocates, and I presume slides, we can share them afterwards, Bruna. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, yes, absolutely. Open to share, please.
Fantastic. So then you'll be able to find the links to these stories as well. Another one, this is one of our oldest customers, in fact. Most people know Cambridge University. You may also be aware they have a press. It's one of the largest presses in the world. They create anything from student books and magazines to online products. And there's been a big shift, as you can imagine. Now, when we came in, they had a dedicated data manager, and about 50% of her time would actually go to preparing data in one way or another: SQL, Excel, imports and exports of CSV files, and so on. Now, and on top of that, marketers couldn't build a segment themselves. So a lot of pain points and across the organization. And once they had DESelect up and running, we found that their data manager would only have to spend 10% anymore of her time on data. And suddenly the marketers, even junior marketers later on, because we kept following up with them, were able to build very advanced segments. There's more where that came from. So we also have some great success stories with Vlerick Business School, which is very close to my home, of course, some other universities in the States, and also the Heart Foundation. In this case, Australian Heart Foundation, I should add. And yeah, doing some great things together there. Lastly, before we jump to the demo, I'd also like to add that we have some reviews on G2 and AppExchange. We are an AppExchange partner, of course, so feel free to check it out and read the reviews there. Good. I don't know if I should have a quick pause here to see if there's any questions from the audience, or shall I jump in?
Let me check.
No questions at this point, Anthony. So feel free to dive into the demo. Thank you.
Super. Thanks, Sam. So it's hard to give a demo about segmentation without mentioning at least data. So I'm going to jump to the Marketing Cloud, which we're all very familiar with. Just zoom in a tad. By the way, you may notice the search bar at the top if you're wondering where is that coming from. Remember, I shared that SFC Quick Search link earlier. So if you want this thing, give it a try there. Now, for today's demo, I have prepared a number of data extensions. And again, I presume many of you will be familiar with also not just the Marketing Cloud, but also Salesforce CRM. As such, you've probably heard of something called accounts, contacts, and opportunities. It's the standard data model in Sales Cloud. And for many customers, it's also their data model in Marketing Cloud. I'll be using this as an example, but mind you, we can work with any data model as long as the data is in Marketing Cloud, whether it's a synchronized DE, a standard DE, a Salesforce DE, or even data views, as I'll show you in a moment. We make them available for you. Now, to get a little feel of the data that we'll be playing with, say we open opportunities. This is a very simplified version of what an opportunities table typically looks like. And we have some opportunities here. And as you can see, they have their own IDs. They're also linked to accounts through an account ID. This is, again, where this relational data model comes in. And we have some opportunities that are open, some are closed lost, some are closed won, etc. Very basic. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, that we're a marketing team, and I'm a marketer and I'd like to support my sales colleagues in a B2B environment, let's say, with a sales acceleration campaign. Today, that would be known as ABM, account-based marketing, which has become a very a term that has definitely caught up. So if I want to do that, I want to combine information from opportunities with contacts. But that's not possible out of the box with Marketing Cloud. There's a few workarounds. I'm sure that some may wonder about that. But once you start combining several data extensions, it breaks down, basically. So you would end up writing a SQL query or calling someone who can. That is unless, of course, you have DESelect, which sits nicely here under App Exchange. And the moment we arrive in DESelect, you'll see this screen, which may be a little bit new to you, except that the look and feel is very Salesforce-y. Now, what we're looking at here is a list of something we call selections. And you can think of selections as a group of rules, of a segment. And the neat thing is that this is an environment within your Marketing Cloud account where you can collaborate with your colleagues. So say that you want to create some segmentation templates and store them for later use, perfectly possible. Say you want to copy past selections of your own, and you just want to tweak a few criteria, perfectly possible. Now, for the sake of timing, I've created a selection, and in fact, it's the one that's remaining from the demo jam, and we'll have a look at that. Right, so now we've jumped into the selection, and I'll walk you through the different things we'll do. Now, on this first screen this is what we call step 1, which is selection criteria. Here we'll define our data sources, throw them together, and then add some filters to get down to the records we really want. In the next step, we're going to define our target, which in this case means a target data extension. Anyone who's written a query, it will ring a bell, but basically it means we're going to define where the result is going to be saved, which is in Marketing Cloud, so it's immediately usable. And lastly, we can preview that, so we get a sense of are we filtering 1,000 people or 10,000 people? Something you typically want to know before you click send email. So step 1, selection criteria. On the top, we have some available data extensions that we can use. And on the right-hand side, you can see the ones I've already selected. Now, before I jump in there, I just want to point out that this section will be automatically populated by any DEs you have in this business unit. And that will continuously update. So customer needs more data extensions or changes their data model, not a problem, no additional integration work needed here. It will be immediately available. Now, some of you who've been along Marketing Cloud a little bit longer may recognize these underscore named data extensions, which are in fact something called data views. If you're not familiar with that, I'd strongly urge you to explore the documentation on that, because this is where all behavioral data is stored in Marketing Cloud. So if you want to do real marketing magic or marketing automation magic, it might be worth considering. Now, I've already selected a few data extensions. You can see here we have accounts, linked to contacts and opportunities. Now, how did I link that? Let me just very quickly show you that. We defined a relationship. And this is, I would say, for most users where the real magic of the solution sits, because this is exactly the kind of thing where you would typically write SQL for. Specifically, you would write things like join statements. But we don't have to. We can just say how accounts and contacts are related. In this case, it's through an account ID. And on top of that, we can define different kinds of relations which correspond to different joins. What's also nice is you can do this filter, accounts without matching contacts, in case you want to do suppressions. So for any exclusions you want to do from previous campaigns, all the way to defining marketing pressure rules in your system, this can all be supported with DESelect. By the way, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm happy to be interrupted and answer any questions that may pop up. With selecting
Anthony, sorry, me again. There's nobody else asking, but I'll ask you. Is that necessary a lot of setup to have this inside Marketing Cloud? Because I think this is something that my clients ask me a lot.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So the actual setup is really plug and play. So I can quickly show that. So when we say plug and play, what it means is we have prepared something called an installed package. It's a little bit less well known in the Marketing Cloud space, but very well known in the in the CRM
Salesforce,
space.
yeah, CRM, yeah, true.
Exactly. So if I would go to our installed packages in this Marketing Cloud org, there'll be a bunch of DESelect since we have many BUs for demoing here. But this is what it will look like, and we do this plug and playing for you or for the customer. It's a very difficult process. It takes us about 30 minutes. So it's minutes, not days. But once it's set up, yeah, you're good to go.
Good. No, that's very, very important to see it because this is something that a lot of people just keep wondering how is that plug and play works, you know. So thank you so much.
No, great question. Thanks for asking. I'm going to jump back to filters now. For time's sake, I'm going to be quick. We support any filters that you can find out of the box in Marketing Cloud, and many more. Such as in filters, which allow you to do comma-separated values, such as here I have a date filter that uses a relative date filtering. So birthday filters are supported. Obviously, you can combine all of that stuff. And then we even do something called in results, which is for the more technical people, subqueries. And you can get very creative with that, but it's a story for another time. I'm going to jump through the two next steps rapidly. In target definition, which is the second step, we define our data extension. Now, instead of letting you manually create a data extension every time, you can just create a new one on the fly, as we've done. Then you can also define something called custom values, where you could do calculated values. So this is very nifty if you want to do things like lifetime value, or maybe in case of nonprofits, things like total donations made, and you want to do these kind of calculations or simply inform people of it, you can. There's more to this. I'd maybe suggest you also have a look at the recording of the demo jam, and if not, have a look at our website and you'll find many more features here. In the final step, there's a preview. Here it's already been calculated, and we can see that we have 20 records that are being shown as a preview out of the 24 records in total. So maybe my campaign is a little bit too small here, but it gives you a good sense of what's going on. If I'm happy with this result, I just click run, and it will create a new data extension directly in Marketing Cloud, which you can use for an email send or a journey or whatever the heart desires. All right. With that said, I'll jump back to the presentation. I do think we have a question from the audience.
I answered that for you.
Thank you. Super.
It was in relation to non-profit pricing, Anthony, and what you can offer for NGOs.
Absolutely. I'll come back to that in one slide. I do want to mention about calculating values in the demo that I touched upon very lightly, is that it can also pave the way to scoring and grading, which is, of course, something that is very interesting to do as an SI. It was part of my first marketing automation projects back then in Pardot. And in fact, that's where we borrowed some inspiration when building this feature. Now, here's the second call to action. We have actually prepared a implementation guide for that, which you can find on our website. And I will drop it in the
that
chat.
was coming to my other question that I had, Anthony. That is, what kind of configuration the SIs could just get for the project, you know, which kind of admin or many things. So you just answer probably there, right?
That's definitely a part of it, but we have an actual listing of services that partners can provide, and we're working on making estimates for that ourselves, so that we can just basically give everything a partner needs to go to a customer with full confidence and say, this is the work we need to do, and this is how much effort it takes. Now, maybe I'll just cover that topic first, because I know we're almost out of time. I'll be very quick on this slide. So where does your offering sits in? As I already mentioned, we do the setup for customers. For now, there's no full installation link. It works a bit different in Marketing Cloud and CRM, so we still have to do the step for the time being. If I jump to the end, we also offer support through our support portal, cases, learning platform, and so on. But in between, there's an option for you. Some of our current partners, they already provide DESelect training. And the neat thing is that we now have a certification program. We had our first wave of certifies, I guess, trainees just last month. And we're now opening more applicants to join. So again, I will drop the link here. If you're interested in getting certified for DESelect, let us know. We'll be doing it on invitation-only basis in the coming months, and later it will become public. So if you want to be early, let us know. And in terms of services, besides the scoring services, Bruna, we have things like reviewing the data model and predefining relations. I haven't mentioned that, but you don't always have to define and link your data model anymore. You can do it once and define a data model, and your customers can use it. Define selection templates, define master DEs, and then the more interesting stuff, I believe, strategically define target audiences together with your customer. Think about what could really help them. Define scoring models, as we mentioned. Operationally, converting legacy SQL and managing audiences for campaigns. That's it on the services. I see we have one more question, but maybe we should take it offline.
I was about one more. Okay, up to you. We still have 3 more minutes. So if you want to cover that now, Anthony, that's completely up to you. I'll let you be the judge of that, but we do have a few more minutes. Okay,
I'll have a look at Duncan's question in a second. Because there was the question about pricing, the way you can find our prices online. We really have tried hard to make a price that's fair, depending on the edition that you have, and it also scales based on the number of users and BUs you may have. Now, as mentioned here, discounts for nonprofits may apply on a case-by-case basis. So basically, get in touch, and we'll see what we can do for you. I do have to say that we really try to look at value. So we even have a business case template, and it's a public spreadsheet. And again, the link is in the presentation, but we have some ways to calculate efficiency gains that you can get through DESelect. And depending on the scenario you sit in, it might be very significant for your organization. What that means is that typically we see that customers report a 3 to 10x ROI. So in a couple of months, you've usually earned back your investment in DESelect.
Cool, thank you. It was the same question, Duncan here. Thank you for answering that.
All right, cheers.
Good. And Anthony, just before you finish, if I have a client as a Marketing Cloud AE, or if one of our partners have a client that are interested in DESelect, what should we do?
Yes, very good question and good timing too. Basically, send me an email.
Great,
we have a team of experts in our team, all trained in giving demos and even analyzing SQL. I will go quite far in that regard. So if you have use cases, you want to have a demo even first for maybe your organization before you show it to the client, that's perfectly fine. Get in touch with us, me, myself, or I will link you to someone from my team. We'll sit together and we'll review your requirements.
Great. Thank you so much, Anthony. For me, as I said at the beginning, it's an honor. I love this tool. I think complements so well Marketing Cloud and helps a lot, especially on saving time and just to get the right data in the right place. Thank you.
I appreciate that a lot, Bruna, really. And thank you for having me here. Thank you to Sam for facilitating. It's been a pleasure being at Unite.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Bruna. Fantastic session, great content, and thanks to everyone who has joined.